Have you ever been told that you were too much, that your emotions were too much, that you were too sensitive, that you were too too emotional? Well, I want to tell you that your emotions are not the problem. It's what you do with them. Because the best ideas that you have are from those emotions, especially as a creative. Those emotions are what you pull your ideas from. It's the essence and the nuance of being human that actually allows the creativity to have that stamp of your originality in it that nothing else can have. And so a lot of times we're taught that not to deal with our emotions, actually, to suppress them, to push them away, to power through them. And in some situations, that's actually beneficial. That does work, but not in every situation, especially when the emotions keep rising up. And they keep rising up because they need your attention and they need to be addressed and dealt with. And so a lot of times we don't have the discernment to understand what those emotions are going through us because we're just so in the mode of judging the emotions that come up. Why should I feel this way? And then we bring in even more emotions. But I want you to consider as a creative the time that you've spent discerning, crafting, fine tuning with your eye, with your hand skills, your art, your creativity. And that when we can take that same discernment and that discerning eye and turn it inward, and we really look at our emotions and we understand what the messages are, we're going to actually find some pretty creative gold in there. And so I want to walk you through what that starts to look like when we're looking through our emotions and what we typically tend to do, and what you may also be doing without realizing it when they're coming up. And this idea of alchemizing it, because we hear a lot of just pushing through it, and not even just pushing through it, but I feel like there's a missing piece, or this idea of alignment and getting in there, but without really talking about how to get there in that moment, in that place. And so I just want to offer up, when you're going through emotions like anger, grief, envy, right? These are really big clues and keys into what it is that you need to do and what it is that is coming from you that needs to be addressed by you. So when we have an emotion, we can either be moved by it, we can be inspired by it, it can have us look at things in a new way, and we can start to change it, or it's running us. It's overriding our logic, it's overriding, and we're being run by that emotion and it's taking control. And so something like envy, when we're moved by envy, if we can recognize envy within us, we might see somebody that we want to be. And that is giving us a very detailed clue about what it is that we want for ourselves. And so if we're moved by it, we can really just kind of detach from that emotion of envy, and we can go and look at that person and start to see what in that life is that you really want, and start making efforts to get it for yourself. When you're run by envy, when that emotion is fueling you and running you, you tend to feel obsessive over someone, or you start criticizing them and judging them. And you're starting to put all this attention and focus onto a person other than you. And all of that energy is completely wasted. It's a completely wasted life force that could be put into your creativity, right? So we have the same emotion, but we have two different outcomes. And that's really important because these moments come in and these emotions come in and they're subtle and they're sneaky. And sometimes we think we've resolved certain things from our past, yet they still linger. That means that there's a message in there for us to excavate out and get out. And so, what we want to understand in looking at our emotions that is that we're not trying to control them. We're not trying to force anything or manufacture anything. We simply want to be in the mindset of being able to observe and discern, so that we can work with that energy and mold it and do with it what we want and redirect it in the way that we want. So there's three ways that we handle emotions, and some of which you may be aware of, some of which you may not be aware of. The first one is suppression. We suppress it, we don't want to deal with it, we push it away, we push it down, it disappears. But it never really disappears. It actually compounds and keeps building. And so that little stressor, that little thing that you're suppressing grows over time, and it becomes really, really explosive sometimes because it just has to be let out. The other way that we handle emotions is that we might perform through it. So that idea of feel the fear and do it anyway is a mastery level concept. It's only when you understand what is driving that fear and the illusions behind what's driving that fear will allow you to push forward and move through it because you know yourself well enough to move through it. But if you are so in fear, you're probably gripped. You're probably in a fight or flight. You're probably in a freeze response. You're in a different kind of space because you may not really consciously understand what it is that you're fearing. But when you do the work and you go in deeper, you would be able to move through it. But a lot of times we just try and plow through an emotion without understanding what it actually is trying to tell us. And then it keeps coming back. So then we get in the loop and we wonder why are we still anxious? Why are we still fearful? Because you thought your logical mind had sort of figured out how to put it, where to put it in its place, but the body was still registering it as this is just the default setting that we go into. And so we really need to make that mind body connection. And the third way that you might actually handle it, whether you have a name for it or not, is actually alchemizing it, is when you do actually sit with the emotion and you acknowledge it and you accept it and you start to detangle and detach all the stories and the names around the scenario. And you just have this raw emotion that's sitting in front of you. And you have this raw energy sitting in front of you. And it's at that place, then you can start to shift and mold and redirect the energy into some other direction. And if we're really honest, we probably go through all three of these at any given time, where in certain emotions or certain cases, we're really good at alchemizing it because we've been there before. Other emotions come in and we just don't know how to handle it. So we either suppress it or we just try and run through it. But either way, at the end of the day, when it does kind of come back or possibly repeat, alchemizing is the way to go because this is your life force and your creative raw energy, and you want to put it in a place that is you being conscious of where you're putting it in. I have had to learn this for many, many years. I was the best at throwing pity parties for myself and wallowing in this emotion. And there was something about it, it would kind of grip me. And there was something about the kind of artist stereotype of like being this emotional kind of basket case or wreck. And so there was something I learned in those emotions being in them, but I didn't have to linger as long. Definitely. Like there were some, emotions and relationships that just kind of went on for years. And it was just a waste of time. It was kind of a waste of time. But I have the knowledge now and I have the practice behind it so that I can take whatever time needs to be taken. And then I don't linger anymore because there are other things to do. And I would rather take that energy and redirect it in a way that's going to benefit me and possibly those around me. So over the next couple videos, I want to go into a series where we really dig a little bit deeper into these emotions and start to decode a little bit more into what it's asking from us and what opportunities those emotions are giving us in how we can start flourishing in our own creative voice and our own creative signature and putting things into practice, putting that essence of human and that keen observation and that lived experience in the work, because that's really going to be the fingerprint of where we're going next to this nuanced degree, right? Is we're not into general anymore. It's the specifics where when I say anger or envy or grief, we can all relate to it, but that story around it is so uniquely yours and how it's shaped. And because of that, like because we want to be able to alchemize and move through the emotions, that gives us more experiences to then have more experiences to have more experiences to keep blossoming into this type of work that we want to have in our creative style and our creative expression and our creative voice. And when we can handle emotions coming through, no matter what comes to us, that also builds a sense of confidence. That also builds a sense of security that you can handle anything, which you can, because you're an amazing creative and you know how to work with this energy. And the more we can work with these energies, especially with so much changing in this world right now, the better that we're going to be. And the faster we're going to get into doing the work that we love or building the life that we love, or using that energy however you see fit. Your creative practice, your creative life, it's all kind of a blend, right? Your work-life balance is really just you balancing out the priorities in your life. And so I want to prepare you for the conversation going forward of when we get into these emotions, the foundation of when an emotion arises, how to go through that to start alchemizing it. And then we can go even deeper into specifics. And so the first thing I think it's really important to understand is when you're having an emotion, is to just do a quick gut check and just see, or a heart check or a mind check, is this my emotion or is this somebody else's? And if you've never heard that phrase before, it might seem a little silly, but sometimes, especially if you're an empathetic, creative, like you probably are, you most likely absorb things in the environments that you're in. It is easy, even if you are turning on the television, to just turn on the news and get absorbed into what's going on and to have empathy and feel for that, even though it's thousands of miles away. And that can drain us. And so there has to be a discernment of being able to still participate in this world, still know what's going on, but not have it take us out so much emotionally that we can't move forward. And so the first thing is registering. Is this my emotion or is this somebody else's? And if it's somebody else's or if it's something else going on, leave it alone. It's not yours to metabolize or process. It just is. And there's another level of acceptance with that. But when you actually acknowledge that this is my emotion I'm feeling right now and I'm going through it, the second thing I want you to do is to name it. And this is really important because we want to name it specifically. Saying that I'm stressed or burnt out is still really vague. We want to get specific because we want to be able to work with that information because it's data. So if you can really dial in and be specific about what it is that you're stressed about or what it is that you're frustrated or anxious about, you're going to have more clarity around solving it, around changing it, around shifting it. And so when you get into naming it, then you're going to want to locate it in the body and you're going to want to sit with it and you're going to want to see what's happening in the body. Is your chest tightening? Are your shoulders tight? Is your jaw locking? What's happening so that we can have a really clear mind-body connection. When I'm feeling this, my body's doing this, right? So now we can start to see when you may not even realize that the emotion's happening, but your body is naturally caving in. And so if you start to notice, oh, I'm kind of like this, oh, maybe if I just relax or open up a little bit more, it starts to shift. But we just want to locate it in the body and be specific about what we're feeling. And then what we want to do, we want to stay with it. So let's keep the envy example going. I don't usually get this, but if ever this has happened and I get a whiff of envy, I'll sit with it. And then I just really look at who am I looking at? What is it about them that I'm envious of? And then it's really quick for me to see these are things that I want for myself. The lifestyle, the whatever it is. I don't even think it's a car, but like there's something in them or something about that I really just want for myself. And that's what I can start to look at, which is once I've stayed with it, once I gather all the information, once I understand what it is that this emotion is trying to tell me, then I can start to alchemize it. Then I can start to turn it and redirect it. Alchemizing is kind of the end process, but what we're really starting to do is shift the energy really away from whatever issue we think is outside of us and turn it inward. So again, with envy, it's just a matter of deciding this is really what I want for my life. I may not be happy in my situation. And so now I have a very clear picture of what it is that I want to go towards and what I want to build for myself. So now I can focus all of that energy and look to see, well, what do I actually have that matches that? And then where's the bridge for me to go to get those other things that I want? And now I'm redirecting it. Now I'm creating for myself. Now I'm shifting that emotion around, and now I'm using all that energy, which is a lot of focused energy and somewhat obsessive energy, into putting it towards obsessing over my life. Best thing possible. The fifth thing that you're going to do is really sit with that intuitive intelligence. So once you have that intuitive intelligence and you can really work with what's underneath it, then you're going to be able to really redirect it. Emotions work differently. Anger is pure fire and it needs a lot of momentum and energy to move through it. Grief is like the ocean and it ebb and flows. And so it comes in and it goes out. And it does not need to be or should be contained at all. Don't want to hold on to grief. it needs to pass. It needs to just come in and let it go and have it give it the message that it wants to give you and then release itself. And so when you can listen to your emotions, when you can really see what's going on underneath, you might be pleasantly surprised afterwards, after you do the alchemizing, of what you find. This is where your wisdom lies. This is where your creative wisdom lies. And creative wisdom is what you take out of your life and your experiences, and you apply that into your creative work, into your creative expression, into your human expression. Not carrying a wound, of course, but just being able to showcase the growth that you've had in just the way that you stand and just the way that you are. But this takes work. This takes a lot. This takes work. This takes practice. This takes working with yourself, sitting with yourself, having grace with yourself, and having these moments to move through and check in. And over time, the more you practice this, the faster you move through this. So when you do hear a phrase like feel the fear and move anyway, you know exactly what that means because you've done the practice to go through what your specific pain points are for fear, see the illusions in them, and still keep going. But if you haven't done that work, it's a really hard concept to understand. And so this is the kind of work that I love talking about. And this is the kind of topics that I have a hard time finding online with creatives. Typically, I've noticed with creative communities, there's just a lot of tips and tricks and productivity tools, but not a lot of how do I get my spark back when I don't want to create anymore? Because a lot of people get burnt out. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. And most things in therapy for typical burnout will direct them to do creative work, to do art, painting, crafts. But when you are doing that most of the time, where do you go from there? And how do we keep that creative spark growing? How do we keep it, how do we keep the fan flames flaming? Because we want to be flamers and we want to keep growing and be able to have a space where builders are building. That sounds like something you're interested in. I created a free Facebook group. It's a free private Facebook group community called The Creative Cave. And I would love to see you in there. I'd love to engage with you more and have these more intimate conversations about how do we go through things? How do we move through things so that we can always apply it into any aspect of our creative life whatsoever. So thank you so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you in the next one when we go even deeper into this series of emotions. Thank you for being here. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.